that's a possibility because of the way the board's made up or not, but is it something we can do?
We, through the chair, we do
Yes.
have we do, one subcommittee that we do have is the recycling committee, and they've been very active for the last 5 years. This board formed that recycling committee, so, so there's no reason why we couldn't add another committee with residents.
Yes.
I'm Kristen Castigian at Carroll Hill Road. The type of regulations that Noreen mentioned, is that something that a town meeting votes on, or is that something that you guys can just adopt on your own? How does it work?
The board can adopt it on their own during a regular meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And the only regulation needs to be posted for a change is Title V. You can't just arbitrarily post a meeting and say, we're gonna change Title V. You can't do
So
that.
you
But
guys
if-
can do
But
this
so if they
whenever you
wanted
want.
to, at a meeting, ban, and as long as it's legal, because you do have to check with legal, because if you're gonna make a regulation, you need to make sure you put the wording right and correct. But then it is also, and then you'd have to notify all the stores, they have to remove all these things. So, but I think it's more that if they're gonna do that, also, we should have control over if they're gonna sell medical, if there's vaping in there also, that would be included. But I'm not sure if the Cannabis Control Commission, if we have authority over that, because it's medical. Probably not.
But to my mind, if I may, I think what you're talking about is commercial, regular tobacco flavored vaping.
Yeah.
And leave the marijuana facilities alone because they're gonna be.
I don't know, I think we should look into it. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it can't be,
Right.
but I think that as far as, you know, we've had tobacco stings in Charlton, and like Matt said, we've had very few violators over the years. You know, the state would come in and send an underage kid in and with a police officer outside, and then they would actually send the cigarettes here, and I would go over and issue a 21D, which is a ticket for the first, second, and then subsequently a third violation. We've never had a third violation. You know, there's only one place that has been twice in 1 year, and it was a mistake that was corrected. So I think that they do sell vaping here at that store, so there would be a total of 6 but one of them does not sell any vaping products, but tobacco only. So the Honey Farms is a huge display. Country Farms, Charlton Food Mart has a huge display, but I think they're gearing up because a lot of it's paraphernalia for marijuana, bongs, pipes, all kinds of huge water bongs and stuff. So I think if we're gonna do some regulations, we should look into doing the paraphernalia portion of it also.
Good idea.
Didn't we just pass a bylaw at town meeting about paraphernalia and it had to be in marijuana stores only? Pretty sure we
No,
did.
if you have a retail sales tobacco from the state and from
Oh,
the
that's
local
what it
board of
was.
health,
That's what it was.
you can sell those products, and that's the only people that can sell those products.
That's what it was, you're right.
And there's a lot of them.
So we're back full circle to where we started this discussion. And so we decided to hold off on it. But I think your idea to form a subcommittee is probably the best one. And then the committee can present to the board some ideas for the board to consider. Because it sounds like there's more out there than I was personally aware of before this meeting.
Yes.
And not that I'm, not for going to another meeting, which would bring me to another meeting, because I belong to too many committees, is that this office, we're currently researching the vaping, getting materials going. I've been going back and forth to the stores. I think the onus would be to get information to the board, which I can do on my own, because we have very few stores in Charlton, that you could make a decision based on the legal opinion. I would get some information from Cheryl Sabara, and you could make a determination whether you want to ban the product altogether, if you want to ban paraphernalia, if you want to ban just a flavored, and that's something you could do. If you decide at a meeting, we could post it regularly, and you can make that decision. To form a committee and drag it out, I think, like you said, keep it on there. I can certainly, I know the dangers of vaping and stuff, we're going to research it. There's going to be a medical facility opening up on the corner of 20 and 31. And I think we should get ahead of before the opening if we can. Ban the paraphernalia there also. If it's for vaping, that means, like she said, if you can put the THC in that vaping, then if we ban it, they wouldn't be able to.
My head's spinning,
I don't know.
No,
It's coming
it's the
too
same
fast.
apparatus, it's identical.
It's like you need
Yeah.
a field
Yeah.
trip to
Identical,
reach it.
But, you know, and as far as the flavored cigars and stuff, when I'm in the stores, a lot of kids come in and they're buying, like you said, those purple flavored tobacco, the cherry, and they buy them one at a time or two at a time because they're cheap. They're like 99 cents. And they buy a lot of them. He says they sell out all the time, and those are the flavored tobacco products. But you still have to be 21.
But it's still getting into the hands of
The green
grade,
Middle school,
middle school.
Yeah.
right.
So
They're easy, they're in a package, they're this big, you
Yeah,
know, just.
so somebody's buying them in a packet of that, and then they're marking it up and making a little money on the side, even though highly illegal. But I'm not surprised, it's, somebody mentioned,
I don't think-
just like alcohol sales used to be.
Yeah, and I think that if you could work with other communities to work in conjunction, but if they're just gonna go over the line and buy it from someone else, then you've eliminated in Charlton for the very few stores we had, but now they're just gonna go over the line and get it somewhere else. So I think it needs to be a group effort, and that's something we talk about at the FEP steering committee meetings. What can we do as a region, of the largest region in Massachusetts, to develop anti-tobacco, and some of the boards just aren't for it. And when you're dealing with, 74 different boards, and most of the boards don't agree with being, I brought tobacco before this board before, and they had two smokers on it, they didn't wanna hear it, they didn't wanna join the tobacco coalition. So, but we have that.
3 non-smokers.
Yeah, former smoker.
Or don't even vape.
So, and I understand what you're saying about they don't list us on there, but it's certainly, we've been, as far as, we don't have any regulations, to be honest. We have some marijuana regulations, but as far as regulations, I wrote them up a long time ago, and we did.
Before vaping was even a word.
Before vaping was even there. There were more regulations of idling, way to ticket people. If you have regulations, you're allowed to write 21D, and we never passed that, but I still have those. But as far as, didn't include tobacco, but we did just vote to go to 21. So now, if anyone was 18, now cannot buy tobacco, cannot buy vaping materials, you must be 21. So it's very difficult to control where they get it.
Mr. Jordan?
So I can be clear, the board has the ability to just ban selling the products altogether in the town?
We could ban tobacco sales.
Like next meeting, you could post that,
Yep.
next meeting, you guys can
We
vote on
could.
that, and it's out of the town.
Yep,
Wow.
I'd be willing
Well,
to go to
that's what they did
Southbridge
in
and,
Webster last week.
That's right.
yeah, I'd be willing, I go to Southbridge
Webster
for health
received a
meetings.
grant for that, so they.
I'd be willing to go there and say, we did it here, why don't you guys do it here too?
and I think, Jim, you were right when you said you need to get a little coalition, but if you can start small and go to there's 7 surrounding towns, Leicester, Spencer, Oxford, Dudley, Southbridge, Sturbridge, I'm missing one. No, that's not, I'm talking,
Are you
well,
talking specifically vaping or eliminating tobacco?
well, I'm talking,
No,
no,
just
not necessarily
vaping
eliminating
products.
tobacco, but trying to work to restrict the displays for what these kids are seeing, restrict flavored vaping, things along those lines, whatever we decide, and start small and just talk, so that people can't just go across the line. Now they've gotta drive 2 towns away, or 3 towns, or
No.
whatever.
But it
But
starts
if you're-
with one community.
And
Right.
even if you just
Yep.
leave the charge, and other towns will see how well it
Correct.
works, and they
Right,
start copying.
right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
She said it, not regulating is, I think if a 13 or a 14-year-old has to go on his 10-speed bike and ride to Webster to buy vaping products, well, that's probably
is-
not the
this
worst
is
thing in
the
the world,
display
right?
What you were talking about at Honey Farms. You can scroll down and up, it's pretty tall.
And I agree, my 15-year-old daughter thinks smoking is disgusting. I'm not so much worried about that.
No,
She
me neither.
really thinks it's
Neither am I.
disgusting.
Yeah, they think it's
But
gross.
they don't think anything of vaping. All their friends are doing in school, they all have challenges to see who can get away with it going down the hall. They all think it's a big joke and it's not a big deal. So
Until they realize that they're addicted to
if we could
nicotine.
just get rid of it all together in the town, I'm all for that.
Very difficult.
No,
I think
right?
I think I called somebody.
I don't know, it's hard to see, but I
I'm
think this
surprised
is
it
what,
wasn't me, 'cause
I think this is what
I
you
don't
were talking
even
about
think
and what you saw.
He just got
Yes,
one.
absolutely.
I mean, you can see the display,
Oh, no, I
It's
see
very
it.
colorful.
It's,
Nice
uh,
kid
Pretty,
color.
that's what they're trying to do.
Looks like Kool-Aid.
and that's only a portion of it,
Wow.
it's huge, so.
It's
I
the
see
old
it, I
candy
see
aisle.
it.
So this is like the largest display of any product that they have. it sounds like. If it's 6 feet tall, I have yet to go into a
That's-
store and
That's one of the smaller ones. But as you can see, it goes on the whole front counter.
how wide is that? Like 10 feet, 12 feet wide?
It's about 10 to 12 feet wide.
They might as well just put up a billboard there, you know? Here, don't leave without giving us some of your money.
And that's another one from another store. So-
Yes, Kathleen?
So, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to back off from my backing off. We're gonna try to back off from half an hour ago.
Can I write this down, backing up?
I'm not saying anything.
I'd like to make a motion that this board, consider banning all vaping products as Webster did, in the same method that they did, which I don't know what that method is, but I'm sure we can find out. I guess I'd like to bring it up for consideration to ban it at our next meeting.
Matt, your thoughts?
Personally, if we're gonna do a regulation, I think we should take maybe another meeting's worth of investigation, let us go on our own for a couple of weeks and see with our own two eyes, because if we're gonna consider banning anything, I do think we should think about that paraphernalia and the bongs and all of that. I think that's, I think that's sending a bad message to the kids, and, quite frankly, people that are offended by it have to go pay for their gas, stand next to a 3-foot bong. I mean, I don't know, but I just think that we should
Right.
look at the whole picture, including the vaping and some of that stuff, and take that into consideration. Because I personally don't know enough about it. I go in with my blinders on, I don't.
Yeah, I haven't seen this until Jim just showed it to me, so I'm walking into the stores too, and I'm not looking around.
That's why for me, I kinda wanna, like, even if it's at, my limited area where I go and see with my own two eyes, I mean, certainly an awareness, but like, even those displays, yeah, I've seen those displays, for all I knew it was
You're right.
cigarettes, I don't know, I don't look at them,
You're right, I didn't really.
Yeah.
I paid more attention, but I think Matt's correct, but it takes a while to write this up properly. It's not something you can arbitrarily just, but I think we can do it at a regular meeting, but I think we should include the paraphernalia in there. If they're gonna take it out and have 6-foot glass bongs with and all that other stuff, it just doesn't look good. And they're doing that because of the anticipation of the retail marijuana store that would open up.
So Kathleen, you had a motion, and in asking me, I don't know about the motion yet, but I'm just saying, I think we need to, as far as this discussion, I personally would like just a little bit more time to see it. And I'm not saying yes or no for your motion,
Well,
But
the
I-
motion is to put it on, is to put it on the next meeting, to seriously consider banning the paraphernalia. I had brought it up earlier in this meeting, and then I backed off on it because there didn't seem to be any reason to go forward at the moment, but I've heard a lot of testimony tonight that has changed my mind. And so, what Jim just showed us is very disturbing to me, and I, for some reason, haven't seen it, just like you, I don't see it.
so I would second the motion for consideration to talk about it at a future meeting. I don't think myself I'd be ready to put the regulation in at the next meeting. I'd like at least maybe one more meeting before so we could, as a board, have a discussion one more time on this,
Okay,
before
As
regulation.
long as we're moving forward, I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
I'm with you on moving forward. I think I agree with both of you. To get it at the forefront, put some time, spend some time, do some research together. Jim, whatever materials you do get from Cheryl Sabara or.
I know that she takes a while to get back to me, but certainly we're gonna need someone to draft it up, a
Right.
letter. So and then you're gonna have to review it, and you're gonna have to give a comment period at the meeting. But you can adopt it at a regular meeting, but like Matt said, give me some time to
Yeah,
get
that's
the,
okay.
get the documentation together so the board can accept it, so it looks good.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thanks. I just kinda wanna know, like, what are our options? Okay, yeah, ban it all together, that's one option, but can we, as you were discussing, maybe you know, do just the flavor stuff, or just the paraphernalia, what are our options as far as what have other, you know, regions done or other towns done?
I think Webster just eliminated the flavor.
Correct.
They didn't do the whole ban on vaping, they just did the flavor.
They
correct?
restricted flavor to adult-only tobacco outlets because they already have a ban on tobacco being sold in adult-only establishments. So they have regulations that provide for the sale of the flavored things, but in adult-only establishments. So they're restricting it for below 21. That's different than the paraphernalia question, but Cheryl Sabara is a legal expert in this
I've known
field.
Cheryl for 25 years, so.
And I bet she would come and do and/or send folks to do a full presentation. And they also have a legal library on the Mass Association of Health Boards, where you can look at
I
what
was
other
on it today.
communities have done. Yeah.
It's, the board can do it, I think, certainly getting the right wording and what you wanna do to make sure it's correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could we ask Jim to reach out to Cheryl to see if she could in fact send somebody to give us a presentation? Because I think that would be,
I can ask, I've asked her in the past, and she's overwhelmed.
She's
She's
busy.
short-staffed and overwhelmed, so she could, I know she was supposed to come for, I was invited to some meeting, I forget the topic of discussion. She could not make it, she apologized, but she's one person, she's short-staffed, but I think it'd be easy enough for her to give a boilerplate like she did for the marijuana. She actually wrote up boilerplate regulations that we adopted for marijuana facilities that, you know, you could just change from any town, but that a lot of towns accepted as we did. Because I think we could get something from her for that. If not, Webster, I don't know, Webster didn't fully do what I think this board wants to do. But I will get the options and see where legally we stand, are we able to, remember this has to go to if the Attorney General says it's not legal, you can adopt the regulation, but we wanna make sure it's enforceable. Because we have to tell all these stores, everything's up, so, and you have to give them time, and we need a time period of when it has to be out of the store.
I think it's a step in the right direction.
Believe me, I don't want
Because the
children
more that-
vaping leads
yep.
to smoking, it's not.
And the flavored is certainly something that's catching
People
our
say
eye.
that flavored, Mr. Chairman, people say it's not flavored, is not harmful. I've actually transported a patient in an ambulance who vaped all night. They had a vaping party, and he was unable to breathe in the morning and had to be intubated. So there are conditions where it can overtake your respiratory system and cause you respiratory arrest or distress. So it does happen. I've witnessed it firsthand.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna add that if Cheryl can't make it, perhaps someone from the City of Worcester Board of Health, because last year they banned flavored tobacco products as well.
Yeah, I can ask Colleen to come.
That'd be great, Jim.
She's acting director of the Tobacco Coalition now. And I meet with her once a month, so I'll ask her. Our meeting's next Thursday. I'll even ask Colleen to come, because she's actually heading the Worcester Tobacco Collaborative.
So we had a motion,
Colleen Bowler.
I seconded it.
okay? Do you have to get the wording proper for Andrea for the meeting notes? Or you wanna restate
Yeah,
it?
just to add vaping, possible vaping bylaw or
Bylaw,
regulation.
Regulations, bylaw.
Just, so put that on the agenda, and I'll get someone here for our next meeting. Remember, at the end of March, I'm going to the Natural Conference in St. Louis, so I won't be here.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, a second. No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. I think that's a good
Yeah.
step.
Yeah, thanks, thank you.
Thank you for all you people who showed up for that. You're free to stick around. Nothing else on vaping currently? Jim, anything you get between now and then, please let us know. Even if it's too big, you don't want to scan it, send it, whatever, just say, I've got something, a bunch of pamphlets or information. If you can't send it, we'll make an effort.
There's
to
a lot
come in.
out there, there's plenty, and it's free, you don't have to pay for it. So we're getting it for the health fair,
Mhm.
health and wellness fair that the town's putting on, and we need it for our table outside, and we'll put a packet together inside. We usually hand out bags with all
Do
kinds of
schools have
information.
these? these pamphlets? Not that
The
kids
schools are doing an educational program. I know Dudley Charlton and Bay Path is
Okay.
taking aggressive, but I don't know exactly what they're handing out. But the
All right, but at
schools,
least they're.
but as far as asking who's suspended for that, I don't believe they'll give me that information.
No, probably not.
No. But the
Not
school
who,
nurses.
but I bet they would give you the
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 statistics.
instances.
Sheer numbers,
Yeah, the
yeah.
numbers, how many detentions, how many have been kicked
Not
off
who,
buses.
but how the numbers, but
Right.
sometimes it's very difficult. The schools don't like to look bad, so they don't want that
I think
information.
something like
public.
this, I bet they'd be cooperative with this.
I don't know, you could go through the chairman.
Yes,
Cheryl Sabaro recently published a white paper on school policies and tobacco control, so I mean, that is also available on the Mass Association of Health
Yeah.
Boards website. It could be a resource to the school department if they have not adopted anything.
If I may, I think Dudley Charlton has adopted something.
Okay,
Yep.
I don't know.
all right. I think we're done with vaping now. Thanks again, everyone, for
I
that.
think the problem is we're also regional, so we have to be in coordination with Dudley, because Dudley has a health director, Charlton has a health director, so they always invite both of us together to sit down and discuss the issues, which is,
If it affects the schools.
yes.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. All right, moving on to ongoing business, Flint Road landfill. Jim, do you have anything new?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Talking to Gary, as you know, Jim Malley was our third-party engineer. The DEP requires that anytime CMG does any kind of work, that require a third party to come along and do their own assessment. Of course, Jim lost his certification and now has passed away. So she would have to work for us. So she would be paying her like we paid Jim. And this is the woman that Gary recommends. And he looked long and hard and really did his due diligence to find someone who the board would be happy with. So that's the letter that I received. So we would need the board's blessing. And Gary really needs, for us to comply, to have that third-party operations person there.
And I'm sorry, I was reading while you were talking a little bit, but Gary has worked with this individual in the past?
Yes. But she would actually not work for Gary, she'd work for the board.
Correct. And this would just be for future third-party inspections of the Charlton landfill.
Yeah.
Charlton landfill, old and new, both landfills on Flint Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's required from the DEP when he does this. It's mandatory, so he looked long and hard to find someone. We've made lots of calls, and Gary finally reached out and found this person. If you'd like her to come before the board, which I would recommend, maybe we can put her on the next agenda and you can meet her.
I have a few questions. One is, she talks about the rate of $60 an hour. Initial reports generally take 35 hours per report, I would imagine. These are quarterly reports or biannual reports? How does this
This
work?
is for the proposed post-closure environmental monitoring program. It's corrective action reports. They would cite, I believe it may be 3 times a year. We
Okay.
only paid Jim, I looked into the records,
Mhm.
when Jim did it last year, we paid him $3,200.
Okay,
So, and I believe he was at $55 an hour.
okay. So it's in the range. We don't have a problem with that. We know Gary, we've been working with Gary Magnuson for quite some time now. Other board members, your thoughts, please.
I'm good, thank you.
My thought is, I respect what Gary has to say about it, and if he's comfortable with working with him, working with this person, I'm okay with that. But I don't think we should close the door all the way on this. I mean, I think we have due diligence to see other engineers and other pricing and whatnot for the town. If it's something that needs to happen sooner than later, I would go along with like a one-time report or something like that, and, but I do think there's plenty of engineers out there. I mean, the price doesn't seem ridiculous, I just think due diligence to the town would be more than one, just going with one recommendation.
Yes,
I
Jen?
think when Gary and I talked about it, we tried to maybe coordinate with maybe who would be applying. As you can see, there's envelopes there for you to take home for, those have to be returned after you review them, and we have to keep them here. When the process is done, which you want to post for the next meeting, actually your interviews for our Title V inspector. And those are the only two qualified candidates. But Gary looked, and we looked at both those to see if they were qualified, that way we could actually continue as you did with Jim. They don't have that certification. So Gary looked long and hard and could not find anyone, and he finally came across someone who has prior experience with the DEP recommends. So he said it was very difficult to come across this person. But of course, this person would not work for Gary. They were, I as the director through myself and report to the board, but the board is the appointing authority for this person.
So,
Just for clarification, you're saying that, so, Matt's saying he'd like to open it up to more people, but you're saying there's not any more people?
Well, I'm not saying there's not any more people, but it was very difficult for Gary to find anyone that's DEP approved to be a third-party independent inspector. And that's one of the certifications that Jim didn't have in the end because he was very ill, and that Gary has been looking and searching to find someone who's qualified and has the experience. He thought that the board would be happy with this person, so that this is what was sent forward for me to forward to the board. But that certainly, I don't think hiring someone without speaking to them, I think if they're gonna do work for the board, we should at least invite her to the next meeting and have her come in, and that way you can possibly ask questions. And it's not a lot of work, it's very, so it's not gonna be this glamorous posting of work to be done. It's just something that's gonna work, and every time Gary would go and do the whole inspection of the landfill, this person would go along with them and report, their own report would come back to the board.
this is required by the state, you said?
Yeah, DP mandate.
So Matt, are you suggesting then that we would have to post this, or not, or we should?
No, I'm not, I mean, I wouldn't even have a problem if Gary could come in and maybe talk what his feelings are, but I'm not saying no to this person whatsoever. I think Gary's been leading this board in the right direction since
Sure.
day number one,
Yep.
so I'm not taking away from Gary's reference whatsoever. I'm just hard pressed with somewhere he's saying, here, this is gonna be our new person. Not
No,
saying
no,
that, but I'm just
no,
saying,
no.
here's our new person, and I just say, oh, okay. I mean, I respect the recommendation, but is there anybody else? I don't know.
When I spoke to Gary, Mr. Chairman, when I spoke to Gary, he said, I'm trying to find someone that the board would be happy with. And I'm trying to do my due diligence. So we asked Jamie Terry, who is filling in for Jim now temporarily until the board can appoint someone full. She doesn't hold that certification, and that's not something you can easily, I think, obtain. So Gary did some searching, and actually, it should have been I could have looked. He said, I'll do you a favor and look. He didn't charge us to look for this person, but he felt he needed to get someone who was qualified for the board. But certainly, it's not someone he's saying that he's just recommending this person to the board. So it's up to the board on what you want to do. It's your call. But he just has some work to do, and he really needs to get that third-party person there.
So just, can I have one more question? So Jim, so the two Title V applicants that we have tonight
Yes.
can't do this work,
No.
simply, and
No.
there doesn't appear to be many Title V applicants that can do this work out there, like Jim Malley did.
Well, the problem is, when Jim Malley left, he left a void with 7 or 8 communities,
Right.
because he did that
So
for
they're
7.
all school.
So they've formed a 6 community coalition to hire someone. I'm not sure if they've had any luck yet. But you have to be approved by the DEP to do Title V and be a registered sanitarian or have the qualifications to even inspect Title V. We pulled the list from the DEP that's approved of people already doing it, and the 2 applicants in there are highly qualified and meet those qualifications. So we did send that, and you can see in your folders the paperwork and the process we went through in their application. And there was a couple other people that did apply that did not have the qualifications to bring them forward.
So getting back to Tessa David, is that the correct?
Yes.
So can we bring her in, and are you suggesting at the next meeting, have her come on in and?
Yeah, I mean, if
And
this,
what about Gary?
Well, do you want
him to
Gary
come
here
too?
too?
I mean, yeah, I could call Gary anyways, and, just, he'll tell me where he's coming from or whatnot, and that's, you know, I don't have a problem with this at all. I just, you know, I just question, you know, is this our only choice, that's all.
That's a good question.
You're right, and I think that, and he said $60 an hour was comparable, he's right with Jim, because you know, we looked into it, what we paid Jim to do this. It's something that, couldn't find the reports that Jim did though. So this person has to formulate their own report, send it back for, so it kind of matches up, the DP requires that, so, certainly it's up to the board. I think just Gary just worked hard and made sure he found someone who's had prior experience and he felt comfortable working.
And personally, if we need something that's time sensitive and Gary's waiting on something, I don't have a problem doing it for this quarter or this inspection. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I don't think the price is a ripoff by any means. I think it's probably, quite frankly, it's probably cheap. I just think the due diligence is to make sure that we can say, yeah, there's nobody doing it for, you know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you want, Mr. Chairman or Matt, I can have Gary come into the next meeting and explain his process. Would that be okay?
Sure.
And what the need is, the time frame, and how he came about, rather than have her come in. Maybe it's best to have Gary come in and explain, because he wants to talk about Burlingame Road and the test that's on the agenda next. And maybe we could have him come in, because he doesn't have the results in writing yet, and he's going to forward them tomorrow, a letter. But that's up to the board.
Does he have them not in writing?
Yes.
Can we talk about them?
We can, yeah. I mean,
If you're okay with this, I'll invite Gary to put him on the agenda.
put him on ongoing business first, so we're not wasting his time. So
Okay.
I'm assuming we're paying him too.
Yes.
So we'll put him first on ongoing business.
He doesn't always charge when he comes to these meetings.
I know,
Yeah.
but I don't want him sitting around for
Sure,
45
far, he
minutes or
lives
an
in
hour.
Tallinn, Connecticut, I understand.
Right,
But he did touch base with this department today and said that, and he called me personally and said, it looked good, it's clean, came back clean.
okay.
He's just pending the written results that he's going to draft a letter with them and send it in tomorrow. But he'd like to come before the board
Yeah.
and explain
If
this.
it's all right with
and
the other
other
board
things.
members, I would like to talk to Gary.
So,
Well,
Mr.
yeah.
Chairman?
Open squarely, yes.
I'd like to table the discussion for Tessa David until we speak with Gary and maybe talk about it at our future meeting.
And along those same lines, if I could just add to that, you mentioned that if something comes up, because we may not meet for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, if Gary needs something, we are allowing this Tessa David to, if the need arises, to
Okay.
do the work
I'll
for
explain to him.
Gary. Yes,
If he needs to perform work before the next posted meeting, and we're not gonna be in compliance with DEP, please use her
right.
temporarily until the board can sit down and discuss it.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's what I would suggest, what Matt. I
We
just
don't wanna be out of
said.
compliance with the DEP.
Correct. Kathleen, you're okay with that?
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Thank you.
And like I said, Burlingame Road, the water testing, the one address that did respond, very clean.
So where do we go from there? As long as we're talking about Burlingame Road water testing, this will be brief, I'm sure. I would hope.
I think that this is the only person that responded. I think we talked about, we moved out, got no response, moved out again, no response. And I think Matt said, well, what if this person who did respond kicked in the 500-foot anyway, and we didn't test? So we did test, and that's what Gary did, and it came clean.
Okay. Well, you know what, we'll talk to Gary next week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not next week, next meeting, sorry.
Next meeting.
Yes, next meeting, okay.
That's great news.
It is. It is very good news, to be honest.
And you know what? Kudos to this board for enforcing that.
Yeah, I seem to recall somebody who had the idea to do the testing, brought it up a year or more ago. What would that be?
Maybe, but I'm glad this board
I was a
followed.
little scared when you did that, I thought, oh my God, this could be a can of worms that could cost the town.
I'm glad we followed through.
No, I agree, you know.
Matt, you did it was a good thing. Matt was the advocate 10 years ago for this to make sure it was done, and we did it. And I think, I had a short meeting with Robin today because she's going on vacation, and I told her that we did test the Burlingame Road, came out clean, and she was very, very happy. She said, well, good,
Me too.
kudos to the board.
Good.
Of course, it came out clean, so, but if it wasn't, but it.
Either way,
but it
you wanna
shows
know.
that Charlton's doing the due diligence to make sure that the radius around the landfill is,
Well, that's one anyway.
So
We'll
what
talk to
about the
Gary.
other
next
two?
week.
the
Well,
other,
the other two,
You were
which,
gonna do-
you're talking additional testing. We'll talk to Gary next meeting.
they're, yeah, they've come back, no hits, and they had a small hit.
Oh, the other two that we're
The
doing.
trichloethylene, and I think that he's retested since then and it's come back clean, so. But Gary, that's why I think Gary wants to meet with the board.
Right, so we'll get.
We had to increase the water because they had another resident there, so we did, so.
Okay. All right. Are we, anything else on Flint Road landfill from you or the other board members? Okay. Next up is H Foot Road, Berry Corner Road, and Eleanor Lane. I know we have some folks in the audience. So, Mr. Jordan.
Did you get your letter?
Nope. I called in an odor complaint, garbage smell inside my garage, outside the front of my house. Took 6 minutes for them to answer the phone. So I don't know if their policy is to roll down a phone to phone to phone. You don't know on my end, but if it is, that system's not working. If they're just taking a massive amount of calls, then that's great. I don't really care. But Mrs. Whiting also waited 5 minutes on Sunday when she called. She's already received her response. I received no response, and I called on Saturday. They wouldn't let me request an email and a mail copy. They let Mrs. Whiting get both. And the reason why I asked for both is because in the past I've gotten the mail copy, never gotten the email copy, and they always transcribe my email incorrect. So I never get the email copy. So since I requested the email copy this time, I'm probably not gonna get anything. I don't know if the board gets a copy or not, but I
I
think,
got a copy.
but I think they need to be notified that we should be able to get both if we request both for this exact reason. So I'm not getting a copy now of my report from Saturday. I also think 6 minutes and 5 minutes is a little
I know that.
long time
I
to
did
wait
get
on the
your
phone.
emails.
And really, there's a lot of people we try to get to call when they smell it. You know, between our homes, there's many homes,
Mhm.
and I'm sure a lot of people smelled it. And it's hard enough to get people to call when they do smell. If they gotta wait 5 minutes, they're probably gonna hang up. If we do hound them to call, they're gonna call. So,
What disturbed me was that these complaints were over the weekend, when
Yep.
there's, everything's supposed to be covered. They're supposed to have a monitor there at the landfill that is inspecting this.